here, link it down below, how these Italian researchers, these Italian scholars studied what's going on in Xinjiang, and in particular the claims that the U.S. and other Western governments have been making, but I think largely the U.S., right? Saying that there's, forced labor, quote unquote, concentration camps, all of these things. Then you have, Democratic politicians parodying this same stuff as well, this, deeply troubling anti-China rhetoric when, as the title states, the U.S. seeks geopolitical benefits in the name of human rights. That's what I've been saying, and now we have, the receipts. 3 research institutions in Italy, the Italian Institute of Politics, Society, and Economics, the Italian Institute of International Diplomacy, and the Italian Eurasian Mediterranean Research Center, jointly released a research report written by multiple independent researchers, Xinjiang Understanding Complexity, Construction Peace Through Investigation and Research, Restores the Truth About Xinjiang Issue. The report criticizes relevant countries like the U.S., for seeking geopolitical benefits through human rights issues. There's the report in Italian, but we got the translated findings here, divided into 4 parts. Italian research report stated in recent years, highly politicized media attacks against China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region have frequently often spreading baseless or even completely false info on the issue. The unbiased voice of scholars who have really lived and done research in Xinjiang, kind of important, right? Is seriously missing. Many views from China have been rejected by a priori by the West for ideological reasons. The report clearly stated that the purpose of its writing is to provide the public and policymakers with a different perspective and to distinguish it from the prejudice and specious accusations from the Five Eyes Alliance countries and some think tanks. I think that's Cottonfield, right? Yeah. In the general part of the report in Xinjiang region, a large amount of data and materials are cited to objectively express the Chinese government's vigorous construction of the Xinjiang region. Over the years, the report pointed out the local traditional agricultural conforms to the technological wave and adopts modern tech. The energy industry, an important part of the local industry, is gradually abandoning outdated production methods. Look at this. According to the report, in the past 40 years, Xinjiang's infrastructure projects have connected all major cities, counties, and most villages. We don't even fucking have that in the United States, like in any fucking state or region. I mean, development of the infrastructure such as roads, railways, shipping has greatly reduced the impact of local harsh natural conditions, economic growth. Report said Xinjiang was once deeply harmed by terrorism, and the Chinese government adopted a temporary permanent solution to solve the problem. The Chinese government responded in 2 ways. One is to establish a new international org to assist in counterterrorism, such as the Shanghai Cooperation Org, to cooperate with neighboring countries and to cooperate more with Central Asian countries in counterterrorism. A second is to formulate new laws through tough and other means to help counterterrorism, to curb terrorism, provide more tools, including carrying out education training in accordance with the law. The Chinese government has thought of a way and is an effective way. The report believes that China's counterterrorism and de-radicalization actions are based on the rule of law, respect for human rights, and protection of the legitimate rights and interests of the parties involved. The report pointed out between 2018 and 2020, more than 1,200 reps from more than 100 countries, including UN officials, UN permanent reps, diplomats, journalists, reps of religious institutions, were able to visit Xinjiang. No suspicion of race or ethnicity was found, evidence that religious prejudice suppresses local residents. Report pointed out that the Vocational Educational Training Center helps people who violate law reintegrate into society. Makes sense. Such policies have also been imitated by countries such as Kazakhstan and Indonesia. Many scholars and visitors affirm the above-mentioned policy adopted by the Chinese government, believing it can solve the problem fundamentally and achieve the goal of de-radicalization. So they're not, creating more acts of terrorism in the country. Regarding the previous allegations of forced labor and cotton picking in Xinjiang, the report stated that digital technology has become extremely popular in the agriculture industrial chain. 70% of cotton harvesting in Xinjiang is undertaken by machines, and cotton picking is also a high-paying job locally. And it's very rich. The United States accusing any other country of forced labor when we have the world's biggest prison population. And there's a lot of forced, or what we could call slave labor, happening there. Where's the condemnation of that? Not hearing it, are you? 2019, Western countries led by the U.S. issued a statement attacking the human rights issue in Xinjiang, China. Immediately, 37 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc., jointly wrote to the UN to support China's Xinjiang policy. The countries that have condemned China are all Western countries, but China's ethnic policy towards Xinjiang and received the support of many Islamic countries. The report quoted Turkish President Erdogan as saying the happy lives of all ethnic groups in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region benefit from China's prosperity. Last part of the report talks about how China's efforts to fight terrorism and develop Xinjiang have been distorted by the West. The report pointed out that in 2018, former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell's office director and former Army Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson stated there are 20 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang, China. If you want to destabilize China, the best way is to create unrest in Xinjiang, destroy China directly from within, exactly what the U.S. is trying to do. The report concluded that Xinjiang is the hub of China's infrastructure and logistics system, whether it's from an energy or logistics perspective and has a strategic role. The Xinjiang region is particularly important to the Belt and Road Initiative, so destabilizing Xinjiang means preventing the development of related projects and the construction of the Belt and Road. For this reason, the U.S. and various orgs that support U.S. hegemony, like Human Rights Watch, use human rights issues to seek political benefits for themselves, and they do not seem to feel about this. Fabio Massimo Palandi, an Italian international relations scholar who organized the reports in an interview with reporters, that the West has no evidence of allegations concerning the Xinjiang issue. Palandi said that some think tank scholars and media in the West concocted false reports. Adrian Zenz comes to mind, right? Who Democracy Now! Platformed. And unwarranted accusations about Xinjiang, which had caused serious negative effects. This is the original intention of him and other scholars who decided to write such a report that is objective and independent as possible. Our purpose is to explain what happened by citing most of the data from the international and spare part of the data from China. What were the responses? Because no one talks about Xinjiang's long-term terrorist attacks. So this is a real problem, and Chinese government must deal with it. Many top international scholars believe that our report is more anti-China out of interest than those in recent years. The materials are more objective, more independent, more credible. So this report is basically concluding everything that the United States has been saying that's happening to the Uyghurs, that's happening in Xinjiang, is all bullshit. It's all fabricated to support U.S. interest in the region, aka destabilizing this country, destabilizing China from within. Genocide. For a period of time, some Western scholars, think tanks, and media kept talking about genocide and forced labor in Xinjiang. Palandi pointed out these people and orgs are openly anti-China people, and orgs like Adrian Zenz, like Mike Pompeo, etc. The report was packaged as independent report, and Western countries introduced sanctions accordingly. The purpose was not to protect human rights at all, he said. Quote, these measures have no specific basis but are based on ideological and geopolitical stances. Such things have happened many times before. As for the U.S. and these human rights orgs, they don't care about the well-being of Xinjiang or Hong Kong people at all. Yep. They don't care about promoting the process of peaceful coexistence. They only care about how to increase the tension of the situation. Why? For geopolitics. They compete for international power. 2019, Palandi visited Urumqi and Kashgar in Xinjiang. Long history and culture, unique ethnic customs, and beautiful natural environment left a deep impression on him. What he saw in Xinjiang was a Uyghur and other ethnic minorities whose religious beliefs, national language, and culture were effectively protected and passed on, and there are no signs of so-called forced labor or so-called genocide. Their allegations against Xinjiang are inconsistent with the facts. There's no such thing as any Uyghur forced labor in China for agricultural production or other production. We don't have any evidence. What we know is that the young people from the Education Training Center went to the factory either in Xinjiang or elsewhere in China, a series of job opportunities, but we have no evidence to prove these accusations. This is fact. There you go. Again, I mean, if you had any type of critical thinking skills and just didn't take hook, line, and sinker, this anti-China rhetoric that was coming out about Xinjiang and the Uyghurs, you kind of knew this from the beginning, but now we have this report from these Italian scholars from these three institutes in Italy. Says it all right there. U.S. seeks geopolitical benefits in the name of human rights, and frankly, it's not surprising. Is that surprising to you? It's more common than we think, right? The U.S., yeah, we care about human rights, democracy. No, it's like you're just trying to advance the U.S. empire and imperialism in the region. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. Please, it helps. All part of the people. Much love.